The hallway smelled like antiseptic and expensive coffee. Ian walked through the automatic glass doors of the Los Angeles Medical Center with the kind of presence that made people step aside without knowing why. At 38, he wore his wealth in the cut of his charcoal suit and the platinum watch that caught the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. His long silver hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, sharp features and intense dark eyes giving him the aura of someone who'd survived things that killed other people. 2 assistants flanked him, discussing wedding venues. The wedding, 2 weeks away. Finally marrying Choi Yuna after 8 years of engagement delays. He should feel something about that. He didn't. His aunt Sunhee had called and insisted he visit the hospital before the wedding. She was a major donor and board member, and the hospital's luxury event hall was being considered for the reception. A courtesy meeting with the chief medical officer, she'd said. Family obligation. He could sense there was something she wasn't telling him, but he decided to do it anyway. They turned down a corridor marked Administrative Offices, and Ian stopped walking so abruptly that one assistant nearly collided with him. Across the hallway, maybe 30 feet away, a woman in a white doctor's coat stood addressing a cluster of nurses and residents. She gestured as she spoke, confident, authoritative, and something about the line of her shoulders made Ian's chest tighten with a recognition he couldn't name. Then she turned slightly, and he saw her face. Dr. Chika Matthew, 8 years older than the last time he'd seen her, but unmistakably, her. The gentle roundness had sharpened into elegant cheekbones. Her natural hair, which she used to wear in simple styles, was now sculpted into an intricate updo that spoke of time and care and self-possession. She looked like someone who'd built something, like someone who'd won. Their eyes met across the corridor, and the world went silent. Her face, warm brown skin that used to light up when she smiled, went absolutely cold. Ice in her eyes. No recognition of anything they'd been to each other. Just a stranger looking at another stranger she wished would disappear. Before Ian could move, before he could breathe, before his brain could process what seeing her after 8 years meant, 3 children came barreling around the corner like tiny tornadoes. "Mom! Mom! The vending machine ate my dollar!" The boy waving a crumpled bill had light brown skin and dark hair cut short. "Geez, it's called mechanical failure, Ebuka. You can't negotiate with a vending machine." This from another boy, slightly taller, speaking with the seriousness of someone explaining quantum physics. "I already reported it to maintenance. Problem solved." The girl between them adjusted her glasses with the confidence of someone who'd just saved the world. All 3 were beautiful. All 3 looked maybe 8 years old. All 3 had features that were distinctly, undeniably Korean. And when the serious boy turned to look at his mother, Ian's lungs forgot how to work. It was his face. Exactly his face. The same expression from childhood photographs. The same way of holding his head. The same intensity in dark eyes that now locked onto Ian with analytical focus. "Why is that man frowning at you like the Incredible Hulk?" Ebuka asked loudly, pointing directly at Ian. Chika's head snapped up. She saw Ian and something flickered across her face before locking down. She stepped between the children and Ian like a human shield. "Children," she said with mountainous authority. "Inside, now." "But Mama, who's the frowning Hulk man?" "Now, Ebuka, do exactly as you're told," steel in her tone. The serious boy looked at his mother, then at Ian, then back. "Oh my God! Facial recognition match," he muttered to his siblings. 94% probability of genetic relation. "Why does he look like you little boys?" the girl whispered. "Wait, is he our dad?" Ebuka's stage whisper carried across the entire hallway. The silence felt like the moment before a building collapses. Ian's eyes moved from the children to Chika. 3 children, all around 8 years old, all with his face. The math was devastating and undeniable. "Chika," he whispered. "Dr. Matthew," she corrected, ice in every syllable. "We're not friends. We're nothing." She took the children's hands and walked past Ian close enough that he could have touched her. She didn't look at him. The children glanced back. The serious boy's eyes met Ian's for just a moment, curious, analytical, and trying to solve a puzzle. Then they disappeared around a corner. Ian stood in an empty hallway that felt like an explosion site. His assistant touched his elbow carefully. "Sir, the venue coordinator." "Cancel it," Ian said. "Cancel everything. Before we continue, can I ask you a very simple question? Are you team? Just 5 minutes? And now you're deep in the story like you signed a contract? Team silent watcher, but no likes, no comments, no hypes, no shares, just observing like a spy, and happy I didn't use the voiceover artist I used in the last video. Team Food plus Drama, chewing and judging everybody at the same time. Team Heartbreak Analyst, already predicting the ending and shaking your head. Comment your team and tell us your country. I'm watching who's real and who's lying. Now, let's continue, because you need to know what really happened before this hospital encounter. Trust me, you don't want to be anywhere else. 8 years earlier, Seoul looked like a battlefield under the streetlights of the highway. Ian's convoy, 3 black SUVs carrying his security detail, and his paranoia drove through the night like they were escaping something, which, in a way, they always were. At 30, Ian had more enemies than friends, more assassination attempts than birthday parties, and a defense technology company that made him rich and marked him for death in equal measure. He sat in the middle vehicle, scrolling through emails about weapons systems and corporate espionage, and tried not to think about how empty his penthouse would be when he got home. Choi Yuna, his on-again girlfriend of 3 years, had stopped asking when he'd be faithful. She'd learned to wait. "You'll grow out of this phase," she'd said last week when he'd come home smelling like someone else's perfume. "I'll be here when you do." He'd felt nothing about that conversation. Nothing about most things, really. Nothing until the highway exploded. The first blast took out the lead vehicle. The second hit the rear. Ian's SUV swerved, tires screaming, and then something hit them from the side RPG. His brain cataloged distantly, and the world became spinning metal and breaking glass and the copper taste of blood. When the vehicle stopped moving, Ian was hanging upside down in his seatbelt. His driver was dead. The bodyguard next to him was dead. His chest felt like someone had driven a knife through it. His vision was going dark, and he could hear gunfire outside, meaning whoever did this was making sure there were no survivors. He was going to die in an overturned SUV on a Seoul highway at age 30. And he'd never done a single thing that mattered. No kids, no sweet relationship with his mom, just money. Then the door next to him crumpled, impossible to open, suddenly wrenched outward with a screech of metal. A face appeared, a woman, dark brown skin, wide, terrified eyes, an expression of absolute determination. "Stay with me," she said in accented Korean. "I'm a doctor. You're not dying tonight." "Can't." Ian tried to say something, but blood filled his mouth. "Yes, you can." She was doing something to his chest, her hands moving with practiced precision even though they were shaking. Sir, tell me your name. Stay awake. Stay with me. What's your name? What's your name?" "Ian," he managed. "You, Ian. Ian, listen to my voice. You're going to live. I promise you're going to live." She had supplies, a bag. She'd had a medical bag with her, and she was applying pressure to wounds he hadn't known he had, talking the entire time. She was steady and calm, like she did this every day. "I won't let you go. Do you hear me? I won't let you leave. You're going nowhere." Ambulance sirens in the distance. The woman kept working, kept talking, kept her hands on him like she could hold his life in place through sheer will. Ian's vision cleared slightly, and he saw her face properly. Young, maybe 27. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with heavy makeup and everything to do with the fierce compassion in her eyes. She was covered in his blood, and she wasn't leaving. "Who?" he tried to ask. "Chica," she said. "My name is Chica, and you're going to remember it because you're going to live to say thank you." He did live. 6 hours of surgery, 3 weeks in ICU, 2 months of recovery. By the time he was conscious enough to ask, she'd disappeared. But Ian remembered. His investigators found her. Dr. Chica Matthew, Nigerian, licensed physician, working as a caregiver while awaiting Korean medical certification. She lived modestly, sent money home, and had no criminal record. The beautiful woman was just a good person, trying to build a life. Ian showed up at the clinic where she'd started working. "I want to hire Dr. Matthew as my personal physician. I can get her license expedited." They called Chica to the director's office. She walked in, saw Ian, and her face did something complicated. "Mr. Yu, you saved my life. I'd like to hire you. I appreciate the offer, but I'm happy here. Listen, I can get your medical license in weeks instead of years. You have enemies who blew up 3 vehicles to kill you. Sir, I want a quiet life practicing medicine, not dodging assassins, bullets, and bombs. I can protect you. Can you protect yourself?" The question hit hard. "I'm sorry, because they almost won." She walked away, refused everything. But the young billionaire wasn't ready to back down. Giving up was not how he managed his family's empire, and froze his enemies with so much fear they wanted him gone. So Ian persisted, showing up at the clinic, sitting in her office, and talking about things that had nothing to do with health. She listened like she cared about his answers. "Why did you run toward the explosion?" he asked one afternoon. "Because I'm a doctor. Life is sacred, even yours." "Even mine?" She smiled for the first time, and it was like sunrise. "Everyone deserves a chance to live, Mr. Yu. What they do with that chance, that's on them." He hired her a week later. 6-month contract, private physician, full salary and benefits, and surprisingly her own medical suite in his building. She set one condition: "I live off-site. I keep my boundaries. This is professional." "Deal," he'd said, and meant it. For about 4 months anyway. That's how long it took before professional became friendship. Friendship became late nights talking about everything and nothing. And late nights became the slow, terrifying realization that he was falling in love with someone who actually saw him as a person instead of a bank account, or a target, or a means to an end. Month 5, she was reviewing his sleep patterns and fixing him with a stern look that made him feel like a child caught stealing cookies. "Mr. Super Powerful Yu, trauma recovery requires 8 hours of sleep. You're getting 4. This stops now." "You're ordering me around?" He was amused. No one ordered him around. "I'm your doctor." "Yes." He started listening. Month 6, he tried. Walked into Yuna's apartment with a speech prepared and got as far as, "This isn't working," before Yuna's face crumpled in a way he'd never seen. "Is this because of her?" Yuna asked, tears perfect and calculated. "The doctor? I've stayed through everything, Ian. Your affairs, your coldness, and your games. And now you're leaving me for hired help? Don't call her that. I won't let you throw away what we have." Yuna stepped closer, her perfume cloying. "Not for her." He left without finishing the conversation. Told himself he'd try again later. But a week passed, and then Yuna showed up at his office with coffee and conversation like nothing had happened, and Ian let it slide because maybe he was probably a coward. The night everything changed, Ian was in his penthouse at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling and remembering the feeling of dying in that SUV. Survivor's guilt, Chica had told him. Common in trauma survivors. Talk about it, or it eats you alive. So he'd gone to her medical office. She stayed late, studying Korean medical journals most nights, and he'd talked about the bodyguards who died for him. About feeling like he'd stolen years that belonged to better people. About being so empty inside he sometimes forgot what it felt like to care about anything. And Chica had listened, and held him when he broke down, and somehow her comfort became his hands in her hair, and her breath on his neck, and a question neither of them had to ask out loud. The next morning was quiet and careful. She made tea with hands that trembled slightly, and he watched her from the doorway of her small apartment, like she might disappear if he looked away. "I meant what I said," he told her. "About Yuna. It's over." "Are you sure?" Chica asked. I'm sure. For the first time in years, I'm sure about something." 6 weeks later, she took his hand across the tiny table in her apartment and said, "I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant." Ian's world tilted. "Pregnant?" "Yes. And..." She pulled out an ultrasound image, her hand shaking. "It's triplets. 3 babies, 3 tiny heartbeats on a grainy black and white image. 3 impossible, miraculous lives that meant everything was about to change." Ian stared at the image and felt terror and hope war inside his chest. "I know it's overwhelming," Chica said quickly. "If you're not ready, I understand." "I don't know if I'm ready," Ian interrupted. "But I want to try. With you." They sat there holding hands over that ultrasound image, and for the first time since the highway explosion, Ian felt like he might actually be living instead of just surviving. Meanwhile, Choi Yuna stood in her apartment scrolling through photos with cold calculation. 8 years invested in Yu Ian. 8 years tolerating his affairs for his money. And just when he was broken enough to settle, this doctor from Africa appeared and ruined everything. She zoomed in on a new photo, Ian and Dr. Chica Matthew at a restaurant. The doctor's hand on her stomach in a protective gesture. Yuna was a woman, and she knew when a woman has another life inside of her. That doctor was pregnant, and in that photo, Ian was looking at her like she'd hung the moon. Yuna called her secret boyfriend on the payroll of Ian's enemies. He was feeding her information and intimacy for eventual asset access. "We have a problem. I'm about to lose 8 years to a pregnant doctor. I need her destroyed. That'll cost you. I'll pay. Make it happen." The investigator's Nigerian deep dive returned with a folder thick as a brick. Chica has been married for 5 years to a lawyer named Adeyemi. There was hospital records showing pregnancy loss. Chica left Nigeria suddenly. Husband claimed she abandoned their marriage and was mentally unstable. Most importantly, the marriage was never legally dissolved. "Perfect," Yuna breathed. What she didn't investigate was that the husband was abusive. The pregnancy loss came from his violence. Chica tried for 3 years to divorce. He used legal connections to trap her. She fled Nigeria to save her life. The investigation came with the husband's details. Yuna immediately called Lagos. "Your wife is in Korea, pregnant with another man's child." The voice was gravel. "What? Chica? That dumb fool? She's mine. If I can't have her, no one can. No one." "Sir, listen, I can help you. Come to Seoul. I'll pay. We'll expose her together. I hate cheaters." 3 weeks later, Yuna arranged dinner at Seoul's most expensive restaurant. Chica was 2 months pregnant, cautiously happy. Yuna had tipped off paparazzi, coordinated Adeyemi's arrival, and orchestrated everything. Adeyemi walked in like an avenging angel. This man walked straight to their table, voice projected for everyone. "Chica, my wife, what are you doing here?" Chica's face went white. She froze like he'd struck her. Ian stood, protective but confused. "What? She's my wife," Adeyemi announced. "We've been married for 5 years. She abandoned our marriage, stole from me." He looked at her stomach with theatrical shock. "What? Is she pregnant? My child?" Chica couldn't speak. The trauma locked her vocal cords. "She told me she couldn't have children. She left me, took my money, ran to Korea." Adeyemi was perfectly performing for cameras. Before anyone could think straight, photos hit social media before dessert. By morning, everywhere, Korean youngest billionaire's pregnant mistress is a married woman. The photos showed Chica frozen, looking guilty. Adeyemi's perfect tears. Ian looking betrayed. Stock dropped 15%. Public outcry was vicious. Ian showed up at her apartment with winter in his eyes. "You were married and didn't tell me? That man is my abuser. I tried to divorce. You let me fall in love while you were married, huh? The marriage is dead. He abused me. My company lost 15%. My reputation is destroyed. Because of you. Please listen. How do I know this isn't a setup? You saved my life. Get close, get pregnant, and destroy me publicly. Maybe that was the plan." "What are you saying? I saved your life." "Maybe that was part of it. You're unbelievable," she whispered. "You're back to your old self, too scared to trust, even those who have done nothing wrong. You're fired. Out of my world, out of my life for eternity. Ian, I'm carrying your children, triplets." His face twisted. "Go tell your husband. Maybe they're his." She packed a suitcase, 2 months pregnant, shaking. Adeyemi wasn't done yet. He waited outside. "You're still my wife. Come home or I'll make your life here miserable too." So she ran. What was she supposed to do? Chica bought a bus ticket and disappeared into Korea's countryside. Ian's mother, Yoo Hae-jin, hadn't built an empire by believing convenient stories. She had seen everything unravel and knew something was wrong somewhere. She hired the best investigator. Find out what actually happened. All of it. 2 weeks later, the result came back. The scandal was staged. Yuna paid for the husband's ticket. He's a documented abuser. Doctor. Matthew tried to divorce for 3 years. He blocked it legally. She escaped to save her life. Hae-jin read court documents, hospital records from violence-caused miscarriage, and neighbor testimony about threats. Everything was orchestrated. Everything lies. Her stubborn son had thrown away the only genuine thing in years. Find her. Find Dr. Matthew now. 4 months later, Hae-jin's car pulled up to a small traditional town called Andong, 3 hours from Seoul and a lifetime away from everything else. The investigator had tracked Chica to a tiny room above a traditional herbalist shop, where she was 6 months pregnant with triplets and working illegally at a guest house cleaning rooms for cash because she couldn't use her medical credentials anymore after the scandal destroyed her reputation. Hae-jin watched Chica walk up the street from her shift exhausted, visibly pregnant, moving like every step hurt and felt rage at her son that could have powered a city. When Chica saw the expensive black car, she froze with a hand on her belly, fear written across her face as the thought of her abusive ex-husband flew through her mind. How did you find me?" Chica asked when Hae-jin approached. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because those innocent and beautiful babies need protection." They ended up in Chica's tiny room, sitting on floor mats because there was barely furniture. Hae-jin laid out everything her investigator had found. "The scandal was staged. You were set up. I know my son is a stubborn idiot, but this isn't about him. It's about those children. Family suddenly matters when there are grandchildren." Chica's voice was bitter. "Family has always mattered. That's why I'm here. Hei-jin leaned forward. I spent 30 years watching powerful people crush those beneath them. Not because the victims were weak, because they lacked resources. You saved my son's life when you had nothing to gain. You're a doctor living in a room above a shop because one woman decided to destroy you. That's not weakness, that's injustice. And I have resources to fix injustice. I don't want your son's guilt money. This isn't guilt, this is strategy. Those babies are my grandchildren. I protect family. Hei-jin pulled out a folder. You can stay here, eating one meal a day until you give birth in a rural clinic with no high-risk pregnancy support. Or you can come with me to Los Angeles, run the hospital my family has some influence on, live in safety, get the medical care you need, and let my legal team finalize your divorce using international law. Why would you do this? Because you saved my son's life. I'm mother. And you're carrying my grandchildren. That's all that matters. Chica felt all 3 babies move distinct kicks, each one a reminder that this wasn't about her pride anymore. If I accept, but I never see your son again. Ever. That's your choice. Not his, not mine, yours. Then I accept. For them, not for him. The divorce was finalized by Hei-jin's international legal team using U.S. courts, abuse documentation, and loopholes that Adeyemi never saw coming. By the time Chica was 8 months pregnant in Los Angeles, she was legally free. Adeyemi never received notice. He still thought she was bound to him, still thought she'd come back. He had no idea she'd escaped completely. 8 years passed. Chica gave birth to triplets Kamzi, Adana, and Ibuka, 3 perfect babies who all looked exactly like their father. She raised them in Hei-jin's sister-in-law's mansion, worked her way up from staff doctor to chief medical officer, and never dated anyone because trust was a broken thing she'd locked away. The triplets grew up brilliant and funny and loved. Their grandmother Hei-jin visiting them regularly, watching the kids call their great-aunt Sun-hee grandma, thriving in a life built on Chica's determination and Hei-jin's resources. Hei-jin set up legal trusts, putting company shares and assets in the triplets' names. They were irrevocable and binding. Yuna, back in Korea playing the devoted fiancé for 8 years, had no idea. She thought marrying Ian would make her extremely rich. She had no idea the money was already gone, locked away for 3 8-year-old children in Los Angeles. And Ian, hollow and workaholic and drowning in regret, finally agreed to marry Yuna after 8 years of delays. The wedding was planned for Los Angeles. Yuna's idea, wanting American press coverage. Ian didn't care anymore, didn't care about anything, until he walked into that hospital corridor and saw the woman he'd destroyed standing there, transformed and powerful, with 3 children who had his face. The triplets sat in their shared bedroom they'd chosen to stay together, despite having their own rooms in Sun-hee's mansion, and conducted what Kamzi called an emergency strategy session. All 3 were in pajamas. Kamzi had his investigation notebook open. Adana sat cross-legged looking thoughtful. Ibuka was eating chips with the focused intensity of someone solving world hunger. Facial recognition match was 94%, Kamzi said, writing notes. That man might just be our biological father. Mom knows him, Adana observed. Did you see her face? She's scared of him. I'm not scared of him, Ibuka announced through a mouthful of chips. I'm confused. Why does he look like us? They'd overheard enough conversations between Sun-hee and Hei-jin to piece together the basics. The man from the hospital was Ian, their father, who'd abandoned their mother when she was pregnant, who was getting married in 12 days to someone who wasn't their mom. We need more information, Kamzi decided. Operation Investigate Father, Phase 1, Research. Kamzi Googled Ian on his tablet and found a rabbit hole of information. Defense technology billionaire. Survived assassination attempt 8 years ago. Scandal involving married mistress around the same time. Public condemnation. Stock drop. The articles painted both Ian and someone named Dr. Matthew in harsh light. But Kamzi was 8 and smart enough to know that stories had multiple sides. Why was Mom called married if she's not married now? He asked aloud. Maybe she was married before? Adana suggested. People get divorced. We should ask Grandma Hei-jin when she gets here tomorrow, Kamzi decided. She'll tell us the truth. The next morning, Hei-jin's arrival at LAX involved the triplets nearly tackling her with hugs. Grandma, we saw him. Someone who looked like us. He might be our dad. He was at the hospital. Hei-jin looked at Sun-hee over the children's heads with an expression that clearly said, well, this escalated. That evening, the adults held a meeting in Sun-hee's study. The triplets, naturally, eavesdropped from their carefully cultivated hiding spot behind the heavy curtains. Ian knows the children exist, Heijin said. He's asking questions. The answer is no. Chica's voice was ice. He doesn't get to know them. They're his children too. He threw me out pregnant. He told me to tell my husband about the babies. He doesn't deserve fatherhood. What if the children want to know him? Sun-hee asked gently. Then I'll explain who he is. A man too scared to trust. A man who chose paranoia over truth. The triplets exchanged looks behind the curtain. Kamsi whispered. He told her to tell her husband, but she wasn't married. He thought she was lying, Adana whispered back. But why? Ebuka was eating more chips. Why would he think that? They realized they were missing critical information. Kamsi added to his notes. We, the great triplets, need to understand the scandal. There's something else, Heijin continued in the study. Yuna's boyfriend? Yes, she has a boyfriend. She has been secretly seeing him for years while pretending to be the patient girlfriend. He's on the payroll of the people who tried to kill my son 8 years ago. Chica's sharp inhale was audible. What? He wants Ian dead. Actual assassination planned for after the wedding. Yuna doesn't fully know. She thinks it's just about stealing money. But he's working for the enemy. You have to tell Ian. I tried. He won't listen. That boy says I'm interfering in his life. So we let him marry a woman working with assassins? No. We stop this wedding. But I need your help. Behind the curtain, the triplets processed this information with the seriousness of tiny generals planning a war. Someone wants to kill our biological dad, Ebuka said, mispronouncing biological. Chips forgotten. If he dies, we never get answers, Kamsi added. We have to tell Mom what we found out, Adana decided. They emerged from hiding and knocked on the study door. When Chica opened it and saw all three of them standing there looking solemn, she sighed. You were listening. Mommy, we need to show you something, Kamsi said. We've been investigating. They showed her Kamsi's research. The old articles, the scandal timeline, Adana's observations about the sad groom marrying someone mean. And Ebuka showed her a photo he'd found in Sun-hee's old albums, Chica and Ian together 8 years ago. Both smiling, both looking happy, in a way Chica hadn't looked in years. You looked different here, Ebuka said quietly. You look happy, Mommy. Chica stared at the photograph and felt 8 years of armor crack just slightly. What happened? It's complicated, babies. We know he's our father, Kamsi said. We investigated. We just want to understand. Chica sat down with them then and there and told them the truth. Not all of it, they were 8, but enough. That Ian was their father. That he'd believed lies about her. That they'd been separated because of those lies. That she'd never told him about the birth because he'd hurt her too much. Do you still love him? Ebuka asked. Chica took a long time to answer. I loved who I thought he was. But that person might not have been real. Do you want us to know him? Kamsi asked. That's not my choice. It's yours. When you're old enough to understand. We're 8, Adana said seriously. We understand more than you think. The next day, Chica was finishing her hospital rounds when she walked to the parking garage and froze. Adeyemi was standing next to her car. The man was older now, still broad-shouldered, still projecting ownership like it was oxygen. Hello, lovely wife, he said. Chica's hands shook, but she didn't run. She didn't freeze, gone were those days. She pulled out her phone and pressed the speed dial for security she'd programmed years ago. Listen and listen good. I'm not your wife. I divorced you 8 years ago. That divorce isn't legal. I never signed papers. You didn't have to. Abandonment clause. International court. It's done. He stepped closer and Chica held her ground. You think you can just leave me? Have children with another man? Those children are none of your business. I'll tell him they're mine. I'll destroy you again just like before. You know me and what I'm capable of. Try it. Chica's voice was steel. I have lawyers now. I have resources. I'm no longer that powerless doctor you abuse physically and mentally. Your threats don't work anymore. You can't hurt me. Security appeared, then Chica had called ahead, had prepared for this exact scenario. Her legal team appeared seconds later. The lawyer stepped forward with papers already prepared. Sir, you're trespassing. Restraining order are being filed now. Police arrived and served papers. Adeyemi sputtered threats, but they meant nothing now. He was invited to destroy her peace, and instead got a metaphoric slap on the face. Chica watched him being escorted out and felt something unlock in her chest. You can't hurt me anymore, she repeated, and meant it. From across the parking garage, the triplets watched with Sun-hee. They'd come to surprise their mom with lunch and instead witnessed her being powerful, prepared, and unafraid. "Mom is so cool," Ebika breathed. "Strategic preparation," Kamsi noted in his book. She anticipated his arrival. "She's not scared of anything. Mommy is a superwoman," Adana said, and all three of them felt proud. That evening, Chika called Heijin. "Yuna brought my abuser back into my life. That was a mistake. What do you want to do?" "Everything. I want Yuna exposed. I want Ian to know the truth. I want my children safe. I want justice." Heijin smiled. "That's my girl. Now you sound like family." They planned. Legal team would handle Adeyemi's deportation. Investigators would gather evidence on Yuna and the assassination plot. Chika would confront Yuna at the pre-wedding dinner Yuna had insisted on hosting at Sunhee's mansion. Heijin would tell Ian the truth with irrefutable proof. And the triplets would help, but safely, under supervision, following instructions. Kamsi, Adana, and Ibuka listened to the planning and looked at each other with determination that shouldn't exist in 8-year-olds. They were ready. The pre-wedding dinner at Sunhee's mansion was supposed to be an intimate family affair. Yuna had insisted on meeting Ian's American family before the wedding, probably to scope out additional wealth to eventually steal. She walked into the grand dining room in a designer dress that cost more than most people's cars, Ian trailing behind her looking like a man attending his own funeral. Then Yuna saw Chika sitting at the table, and her face did something complicated before settling on fake sweetness. "Oh, the doctor. What a surprise." "Dr. Matthew," Chika corrected with a calm that could freeze oceans. "And I live here. This is my home." Ian's eyes hadn't left Chika since entering the room. She looked different than in the hospital corridor. She was more relaxed, but still guarded, still powerful, still everything he'd lost. "I didn't know you'd be here," Ian said. "Your aunt has been raising my children," Chika replied. "Of course I'm here." They sat for dinner awkward, tense, and every word calculated. Yuna tried to control the conversation, directing talk toward wedding plans and seating arrangements. Then Heijin, who'd been quiet until now, placed a manila folder on the table with the delicate precision of someone setting a bomb. "Before we discuss weddings," Heijin said pleasantly, "let's discuss the past. These are bank records showing payments from you, Yuna, to a man named Adeyemi in Lagos, Nigeria, 8 years ago." Yuna went pale. Ian looked between them, confused. "The same man who coincidentally appeared at a restaurant and claimed to be Dr. Matthew's husband," Heijin continued. "Destroying her reputation and my son's in one perfectly orchestrated scandal." "What is she talking about?" Ian asked Yuna. "I don't know what Yuna started." "You orchestrated everything," Heijin interrupted, pulling out more papers. "You brought that abusive husband to perform. You created a fake scandal. You destroyed 2 lives for money. Though I'm curious." She pulled out a second folder. "Did you know your own boyfriend wants my son dead?" "What?" Ian stood up. "Your secret boyfriend of 2 years. The one you've been sleeping with while playing devoted fiancé. He's on the payroll of the people who tried to assassinate you 8 years ago, planning to kill you after the wedding to collect insurance and inheritance." Yuna's mask cracked. "That's you can't prove." "I have recordings," Heijin said simply. The dining room door opened, and the triplets walked in, looking like tiny prosecutors at a trial. Kamsi held up a phone. "We may have recorded some things." Ian stared at 3 children who had his exact face, walking toward him with the confidence of people who'd just solved a murder mystery. Kamsi pressed play on audio they'd captured when Yuna made a phone call in the mansion garden earlier, not realizing 3 children with excellent eavesdropping skills were nearby. Yuna's voice, talking to someone. "After I gain control and more trust, I gather those billions in this family, and we split everything. We will live happily ever after, baby. Trust me, I gave away 8 years of my life for this project." "You little," Yuna snarled at the children. "Finish that sentence," Chika said, standing with the kind of authority that moved mountains. "And see what happens." Police sirens wailed outside. Heijin had called them an hour ago, given them everything, let them listen to recordings and review evidence. They entered now with handcuffs and rights reading. Yuna screamed threats as they took her away, but it was over. 8 years of scheming collapsed in a single dinner. After the chaos settled, Ian stood in Sunhee's garden staring at stars he couldn't really see. Footsteps behind him. Chika's voice, calm and final. "The children are yours, 8 years old. You don't get to claim them just because you feel guilty. I know. You should have investigated. You should have trusted. Should have listened to your mother when she tried to tell you the truth." "She told me," Ian admitted quietly. When you were 6 months pregnant, told me you were set up. I refused to believe her. I was too scared, too proud, and too broken to admit I was wrong. You chose comfort over truth for 8 years? Yes. They stood in silence. Finally, Ian asked, "Can I know them?" "Not as a father, I haven't earned that. Just, can I try?" "That's not my decision, it's theirs." Chica's voice softened just slightly. "They're smart enough to choose their own story." The next day, in a hospital conference room that felt absurdly formal, Ian sat across from 3 8-year-old children who looked like miniature versions of himself. Chica, Hai-jin, and Sun-hee were present but quiet, letting this moment belong to the people it actually involved. "Thank you for coming, mister." "You," Kamsi said with 8-year-old formality. "You can call me. Whatever you're comfortable with," Ian managed. "How about our lost father?" Ibuka suggested cheerfully. Adana elbowed him. "What? It's accurate." Despite everything, Ian almost smiled. "Fair enough." They asked questions, hard questions. "Why did you leave our mom?" "Because I was scared." "Do you regret it?" "Every single day for 8 years." "What's your favorite food?" Ibuka's question met with confused looks from his siblings and an answer about kimchi jjigae that led to Ibuka saying, "Mom makes better Nigerian stew." Then Kamsi pulled out a folded piece of paper, an actual contract they'd written together. "We've discussed it with Mommy. Here are our terms. 1. Supervised visits only. 1 hour, twice a week. 2. Mom makes all decisions about our lives for now, not you. 3. If you miss a visit without 24 hours notice, this contract is void. 4. You have to answer our questions honestly, always. 5. If Mom says you're done, you're done. No arguments. Sir, you have to make it up with our mother and earn your place as the head of the family." Ian read through the contract with tears in his eyes. "I agree to every term. Also," Adana added, "you have to tell us embarrassing stories about Grandma Haejin." "Absolutely not," Haejin protested. "It's in the contract," all three chorused. 6 months later, at a hospital fundraiser gala, Chica stood on stage as keynote speaker. "8 years ago, I was powerless. Someone special gave me power through resources, through belief, through refusal to let injustice stand. Tonight, we give that same gift to others through medicine." There was a standing ovation. The triplets cheered so loudly Sun-hee had to gently remind them this was a formal event. At the family table afterward, Ian sat at a respectful distance until Ibuka loudly whispered, "Can our lost but found father sit with us?" "If he wants," Chica said. Ian joined them carefully, gratefully. The triplets announced they were extending his contract based on 6 months of consistent showing up. "You answered all our questions," Adana noted, "even the embarrassing ones. You tried Mom's stew and didn't fake like it," Ibuka added. "It was delicious," Ian said honestly. "So you can come to our science fair next week. Front row," Ian promised. Later, at the dessert table, Chica and Ian stood in an awkward silence that felt less hostile than 6 months ago. "Is there ever a chance?" Ian asked carefully. "For us?" Chica considered the question seriously. "I don't know. Right now I'm focused on being their mother, on being happy. Alone is fine for me. I understand. But..." She paused. "Ask me again in a year. After you've proven you can actually stay and build trust. I'll be here. We'll see." Across the room, the triplets watched their parents talk. "Reconciliation probability. 23%, Kamsi calculated. "I say 40, Adana countered. She smiled at him, small but real. "I just want them to be happy," Ibuka said, "together or separate." Haejin joined them, elegant in her formal gown. "Wise children, your mother taught you well." "You taught her," they chorused. "She taught herself," Haejin corrected. "Power is the medicine that saves the powerless. But the strongest medicine is the power you give yourself." She did that. She saved herself. Time pulled back to the gala, to Chica and Ian in careful conversation, to 3 children who'd orchestrated truth through investigation and love, and flowed to a family that didn't look like anyone's definition of normal but functioned anyway. No perfect ending, no guaranteed reconciliation, just people trying, showing up, building something real from broken pieces. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. Thank you for being part of our global family. Until next time, remember to stay strong, stay hopeful, and never be afraid to love. God bless you. Don't go anywhere, and I will see you in the next story.
K. Afro Tales. The weak will become strong one day.